how do you define integral art? And this came up actually in one of our discussions at the Integral Art branch because it's a very difficult issue. And part of it is because, in this case, we're talking about an artifact, right? It's something that, an artifact is something that a sentient holon produces. So a bird produces a bird nest. That's an artifact, okay? An ant can produce an anthill. Anthill is an artifact. We produce, Armani suits, airplanes, pizzas, Uzis, dynamite. Those are all artifacts. So a lot of the other branches were defining integral medicine as sort of something the doctor was doing or something that was happening with a patient or a client. And we didn't have to really run up against this question because those aren't artifacts, those are human beings. So you could define an integral physician as somebody who's integrally informed, and that's sort of fairly easy. But we were looking at artworks and going, now how do you define an integral artwork? And the initial thought was, well, it's art that has all the quadrants and all the levels and all the lines all put into it, like this Wagnerian nightmare descending on the audience and just assaulting every single orifice you have. And we decided, well, as much fun as that would be, that probably wasn't what we wanted to call integral art. It might be. But I give an example just sort of as a thought experiment. Let's say that we had a Zen master, and just for the sake of argument, let's say that this person's consciousness was integral. And suppose that Zen master draws, as often happens, a single bamboo shoot. Now, is that integral art? And so what we decided is that integral art is any artifact produced by an integral consciousness. Now, that you have to have integral consciousness at the moment. So just the fact that you're, integrally conscious 2 or 3 times a week doesn't mean that if you hit an off day that it's going to be integral art. You actually have to be interested in doing that. And then it also can be judged on its own other characteristics. In other words, it might be a good execution, the tone might be well, the color might be done well, the texture might be done well. But the whole point is that it's coming from an integrally informed consciousness that's taking these perspectives into account. Then whether it draws a rock, a bug, or a Wagnerian opera, that's integral art, or integrally informed artifact. And that gets to a very interesting question then about how do you interpret art. And that gets off in this whole thing. And I've written a lot on how to interpret art, because what you're doing is you're looking at an artifact. And this happens whether you're looking at archaeology, looking at buildings that were built centuries ago. You're looking at some artifact that was built by consciousness. And so one of the ways you interpret it is, what's the level of consciousness that built the artifact? So that becomes part of an integral way of interpreting art. There are many other ways, but that's certainly one of them. Now, with business, a little bit different, but some of that comes into play, because a large part of what business does, remember economics is defined as, one of the definitions, is the exchange of goods and services. Now, services usually means human involved. So now you're talking integral business as if there's an integrally informed human at one end of that. And so that's why we try to talk about integral transformative practice, or what you're doing, and if you want to get your consciousness integrally informed, then that becomes important. But you also can be creating a widget, okay, or an automobile, or an artifact. And then the same things as an artist comes into play. Is this an integrally informed product? And if it is, it's going to be a product that's better than one that isn't, because there's more depth that went into it, more consideration that went into it, and so on. It gets very interesting playing this. But again, the best thing, in a sense, you can do is you just keep cognitively learning this, because that pushes the clearing further that all these other understandings will start to step into. And much like a word processor at the beginning, it's a little bit complex. There's a lot of stuff going on here. But the more you kind of use it, then it's like sooner or later the word processor is just blindingly easy, and it's really fast, and sort of starts to come to you a little bit more quickly.